Okay, we'll do the Perdition deck profile. I got a lot of playtesting done today in the tournament, and yeah, there's quite a lot of mirror matching going on today, but luckily I only had one, and thankfully I got to 2-0 him and didn't have to worry about another game. It's not fun. So, starter, Red Pulse. I really think this is the best starter for the deck, because the other two Perdition starting Vanguards don't do too much. I mean, on paper they're great, but in practice they're really hard to pull off, and it's not worth the effort, and this is just way easier to get off. And if you're playing it with Dragonewt, you kind of want an extra shot at getting your Persona, because you can't always have the Persona Blast in hand. So it's a nice way to dig. And this card saved my life. I sent it back on Legion, drove check it, and guarded it for like a 1 to pass, and I survived, and it was clutch. It was great. And then with the rest of the trigger lineup, we'll go just the 4 heals. I run 7 criticals and 5 draws. I run more of the Steel Dragon one because it's free to put the soul. I don't have to counterblast. So that way if I really want to go for like a Wyvern or something, I have that. And the +3 can come in handy. Like, I've double pumped the Great just to hit a number, and then have the booster after. That way I don't have to commit as much to the field too, depending on what I was playing against. Because like brawlers, they kill your back row. Makes you a little sad having to recommit. Oh, yeah, when they double crit you, then you're just like GG. And then, grade 1s, run 3 perfect guards and 1 quintet wall. I was running 4 perfect guards until I opened perfect guards all day, every day, and could not get triggers to the drop zone for whatever weird reason, so I decided to tech 1 perfect or a quintet wall. And it kind of worked for me, the way it was intended, but sometimes I would just perfect guard and discard it. But more or less, it did help get triggers to the drop zone, even though the counterblast is a little expensive.
So you attack it.
But we have the pretty much their damage on flipper, but it only works in the main phase, guys. Just remember that. People have been trying to apparently do this in the battle phase by bashing a rear guard, and like, no, please read the card. I didn't have anyone do that to me, but my friend said that he encountered that, so twice. There were a lot of novices playing this deck, so, well, novice with the specific deck anyway. But yeah, so basically his skill only goes off in the main phase. So when you Dragonewt or like Menace Laser, it's usually one that goes off, unless you're running the On Legion skill one as well. And I run 4 Gojo because I like to dig through the deck. I like to dump cards. It gets me my Legion sometimes without having to minus really hard, where you have like 3 cards in your drop zone, and then you get to Gojo and then perform Legion, and you don't really minus yourself. I mean, you get arrested rear guard, but it's usually not so bad as where it's completely gone forever. So that's kind of why I like it. And it gets me out of grade lock sometimes. And apparently, I'm only running 1 of this. I had not noticed, but I got this way too often. But honestly, you could play around with the Gojo ratio. I just really like the drop and draws. I like to maximize them for decks that can use them, because in this format now, 10k attackers are still fantastic, but now we have the retire clans back with like Perditions that punish the front row, or like Link Joker locking your front row. So it's not always the best tactic to rush down, but I mean, it is situational. But that's why I feel like 10k attackers aren't as necessary in decks that you want to run other grade 1s in. Then I like to run the 2 Calamity Wyverns. I don't run Grom. It's tempting to run Grom, but I like the drawing a lot more. There's very rarely times where I need to use Grom's skill. It's usually only after the Dragonewt and I don't have any of the unflippers on field, which would be the only time. Or if people just play the 1 column game with you and you're like stuck at 4 damage and 4 flipped over counterblast, and you're just like, well, can't really do anything unless you bravely no guard, which I didn't do today really. On to the grade 2s. 3 Menace Laser pretty much kills a card in the same column as it. Combo with the grade 1, you kill a rear guard for free. It's just a great card in the deck. Killed a lot of good boosters and columns that way. I run 3 Neo Flame. I don't actually really like this card on its actual skill. It's mostly just there for Legion fodder, because people don't seem to like to commit against Kagero for whatever strange reason. So, you know, this card usually doesn't get to kill columns since people don't always call boosters, because I'm sure they know this card exists. They don't want to lose all that advantage or all those cards. And then rounding off the grade 2s, we have 4 of the Whirlwind Dragon 12k attackers. Very necessary because grade 3s, or it's your mate and it's a 12k attacker, and on top of that your grade 3 requires a persona, so you really have to maximize that card. And the last grade 2, actually, I forgot, there was this one tech, Astro Reaper. It's there, I mean, it could be another like Menace Laser or something, but it's just there for that chance of potentially searching out your persona for Dragonewt, which is pretty important because there's been a lot of times where you're just sitting there on Dragonewt Legion and you're just like, I don't do anything because you don't have the persona or anything really. It is nice to search out copies of the Great too if you want to re-Legion or use his other skill, which has come in handy in the mirror match by killing my own front row, so they can't use skill. And then the grade 3s for Dragonewt have to run 4 because of the persona. And honestly, I don't like the synergy with it, but it does work in the way that people see it. I mean, you get to counterblast 2, deal damage, kill 2 rear guards. It's just you need the persona, if not it's a vanilla. But other than that, like if you're playing the one column game, this is a pretty great card just to sit on and then make them think you don't have the crate, where you can play mind games. Like I've sat on Dragonewt so long that my opponent just started committing to the front row because he's like, you don't have the crate, and then I just rode the crate I was holding on to the whole time, waiting for that moment, because he was losing hand advantage a lot. So the pushing is nice in this, with the Dragonewt at least. But then the main vanguard of the deck, Dragonic Overlord the Great, only runs 7 grade 3s, since Red Pulse and Gojo should usually do the job. It's like the MVP of the deck because you plus slowly by attacking a rear guard. They lose a rear guard. You only discard 2, so you stand. You get your extra drive check, and if you have happen to hit your draw triggers, you actually plus like significantly over time, and it's just so cheap. It's attack a rear guard, counterblast 1, discard 2, stand. It's just ridiculously good. That's why counterblast isn't so important to unflip with like ROMs, since this is a very cheap cost, especially if you have the unflipper, so you don't have to pay too high of costs on your other vanguard or rearguard skills. And I guess that's really all I want to say about the deck. It's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.